After my girlfriend rejected the ring, I went to sell it. Then my CEO quietly said, I would have said yes. The city lights outside his apartment window glittered like distant stars, but they offered little comfort. Inside that box was more than just a ring. It was a promise, a dream, a hope for a future he had imagined for years. He had spent weeks planning this moment. He had thought about every detail, the place, the timing, even the exact words he would say. The ring itself was sleek, designed with the latest AI technology. Its metal adjusted to the wearer's skin tone, its diamond shimmered perfectly, and a tiny embedded chip could even personalize a holographic message. It was perfect, or so he thought. Mara entered the living room, her hair pulled back into a casual ponytail, her expression calm but slightly distracted. Eli's heart raced. He had rehearsed this moment 100 times in his mind. He took a deep breath. Mara, he said, his voice shaking slightly, there's something I want to ask you. Mara turned to him, her eyes warm but tired. Okay, Eli, she said softly, sensing his nervousness. He opened the velvet box and lifted the ring. The light caught it, making it sparkle even more brilliantly than he had hoped. Mara, he began, I know we've been together for a long time and I love you more than anything. I want us to spend the rest of our lives together. Will you marry me? For a moment the world seemed to stop. The hum of the city, the distant sound of traffic, even the faint buzz of his apartment lights faded away. He waited, his chest tight, his mind racing with hope. Mara's eyes softened, but she didn't smile. She sat down on the couch, patting the seat beside her. Eli moved closer, holding the box tightly. Eli, she began, and his heart leapt at the sound of her voice. But then she took a deep breath. You know I care about you, I really do, but I can't say yes. Not now. Eli froze, the words hitting him like cold water. Not now. His mind tried to grasp the meaning. Why? He asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. Mara hesitated. I'm not ready. I have so many goals I want to achieve and I can't tie myself down. You deserve someone who can give you everything you want, and right now, that's not me. Eli's throat felt tight. He wanted to argue, to tell her that they could figure it out together, that love didn't have to wait. But the look in her eyes, the gentle, honest regret, stopped him. I understand, he said finally, his voice barely a whisper. Mara reached out and held his hand. I hope you can forgive me someday. Eli nodded, though his mind felt empty. Forgive her. How could he forgive something that felt like losing a part of himself? He put the ring back in the box and closed it slowly, as if by closing it he could shut away the pain. After she left for the night, Eli sat alone in his apartment. The city lights seemed harsher now, more distant, almost mocking. He stared at the ring for a long time. It was beautiful, but it was useless now. He couldn't keep it, not with the memory of rejection attached to it. By morning, he had made a decision. He would sell it. At least then it could go to someone who could use it, someone who could appreciate it without the shadow of his heartbreak. The auction house was on the 42nd floor of a sleek skyscraper in the heart of the city. Eli stepped out of the elevator, his heart still heavy, but a small spark of determination lighting inside him. The place smelled faintly of polished metal and high-tech equipment, and holographic displays floated above the counters, showing rare items, antique gadgets, and luxury goods. A robot assistant approached him, its voice polite but mechanical. Welcome, sir. How may I assist you today? I want to sell this, Eli said, handing over the velvet box. The robot scanned the ring quickly, its sensors whirring softly. Estimated value, 23,400 credits. Would you like to proceed with the auction or a direct sale? Eli hesitated. He didn't care about getting the highest price. He just wanted it gone. Direct sale, he said finally. As he waited, he observed the other clients in the auction house. Everyone moved with purpose, efficient and confident. There was an energy here he couldn't quite match. He felt small, fragile even, but also distinctly human. The subtle nervous gestures, the hesitation before speaking, the flicker of doubt in his eyes, all of these were things he had noticed in others before, but here, surrounded by calculated precision, it made him stand out. When it was his turn, he approached the human broker behind the counter. Unlike the robot assistants, she had an air of patience, and her eyes seemed to study not just the ring but him as well. "Let's see what you've got," she said, her voice calm. Eli opened the box and placed the ring on the counter. "It's AI designed," he said quietly. "Custom settings, adjustable fit, holographic personalization included." She nodded and inspected it carefully. "Beautiful craftsmanship," she murmured. "This isn't something you see every day." I just want to sell it," Eli said, his voice cracking slightly. She looked at him, then back at the ring. "I can tell you're attached, but the right person will appreciate it." Eli nodded, too aware of how obvious his attachment was. "Yeah, I guess I just needed to move on." The broker smiled faintly. "Humans have a way of valuing things differently from machines. Sometimes it's not about money, but about meaning." Eli felt a strange warmth at her words. She handed him a small data pad with a transaction confirmation. "You'll get the credits in your account within the hour. Good luck, Eli. Life has a way of surprising us." He took the pad and left the auction house. Outside, the city was just waking up. Morning light reflected off glass buildings, and a faint breeze carried the smell of roasted coffee from nearby cafes. He felt lighter somehow. The ring was gone, but he realized he still carried the lessons it had brought: love, hope, and resilience. As he walked back to his apartment, Eli noticed something odd. A message notification blinked on his personal communicator. It was from the CEO of the company he worked for, Alaric Kane, a man known for his intellect, strictness, and rare glimpses of humanity. "Eli. Nice work yesterday. Call me when you're free." Eli paused, surprised. He had barely interacted with Alaric beyond normal work duties. Why would he be calling now? He shook his head and continued walking, trying not to dwell on it. But deep down, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, some things weren't over even when they seemed lost. By the time he reached his apartment, the city was alive with morning energy. He sat down at his kitchen table, opened a cup of coffee, and let himself breathe. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing. Being human meant experiencing everything: joy, pain, heartbreak, and hope, and somehow finding the strength to keep moving forward. And Eli was ready to keep moving. The next morning, Eli couldn't shake the curiosity about Alaric's message. He had worked under the CEO for over 3 years, yet he rarely saw this side of him: personal, thoughtful, almost human. Still, Eli knew better than to overthink it. Work was work and emotions could wait. He decided to focus on the task at hand: selling the ring. Though it was gone from his hand, its memory clung to him like a shadow. The auction house's skyscraper gleamed under the sun, tall and proud like a fortress of wealth and technology. Eli entered again, this time with purpose. The lobby buzzed with activity. Holographic displays floated above counters, showcasing rare items: ancient coins, experimental gadgets, AI-driven art pieces, and other high-end treasures. The clients moved with precision, their eyes scanning, calculating, always searching for value. Eli felt out of place among them, a human with messy emotions in a world of logic and efficiency. "Sir," a robotic assistant greeted him, its metallic voice polite, almost rehearsed. "Welcome back. The direct sale counter is available." Eli nodded and followed the glowing path to the counter. There he met the broker from yesterday, the woman with calm eyes who had spoken about meaning and human value. "Eli," she said with a small smile, "you're back." "Yes," he replied quietly. I want to finalize the sale." She gestured for him to place the ring on the scanner. The holographic interface lit up as it analyzed the ring's design, materials, and embedded AI. Numbers, percentages, and probabilities floated around it like tiny stars in a digital universe. "Your ring is impressive," she said, her voice slightly softer than usual. "Not many humans can afford or understand the technology behind something like this." Eli shrugged, trying not to show how much the compliment meant. I didn't think it mattered that much. I just wanted it gone." The broker tilted her head. "Humans often underestimate the value of emotional resonance. Machines see only efficiency and profit, but people we feel, that feeling carries power." Eli blinked. He wasn't sure if she meant the ring or himself. Maybe both. A soft chime sounded, announcing the arrival of a high-profile client. Eli turned slightly and froze. The figure stepping into the auction hall was unmistakable. Alaric Kane, CEO of the company where Eli worked. Alaric moved with effortless authority. His suit was sharp, his posture perfect, but his eyes, they were curious, almost gentle as they scanned the room. When he noticed Eli, a faint smile appeared on his face. "Eli," Alaric said, walking over, "I didn't expect to see you here." Eli's mouth went dry. Morning, sir." Alaric nodded toward the ring on the scanner. "That your work?" Eli hesitated. It was for someone else. I'm just selling it now." Alaric raised an eyebrow, amused. "I see." He glanced around the auction hall, then leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice. "I like your taste. You always pick things carefully, even when it's personal. That attention to detail, it's rare." Eli felt heat rise to his cheeks. Compliments from Alaric were almost as unexpected as the CEO showing interest in personal matters. "Thank you, sir." Alaric's gaze softened. "Tell me, Eli, why sell it? Surely something this exceptional doesn't belong in a box forever." Eli paused. Should he tell the truth? The raw honesty of heartbreak. He decided to be straightforward, nodding slowly. "It reminds me of someone I love, but it didn't work out. I just want to move on." Alaric's expression didn't change immediately, but his eyes lingered on Eli with an intensity that made Eli uncomfortable and curious at the same time. Then, almost in a whisper, he said, "Sometimes, humans miss opportunities because they don't recognize their own worth. Don't let this be one of them." Eli blinked. He didn't know how to respond. He could only nod, feeling a strange mix of confusion and encouragement. The broker cleared her throat, pulling Eli back to the transaction. "We can finalize the sale now. The value remains the same as yesterday, 23,400 credits. Are you ready?" Eli nodded again, this time more firmly. "Yes, let's do it." The broker processed the transaction quickly. Holographic lights danced around the ring, and within moments the credits were transferred to Eli's account. He felt a strange relief, like a weight lifted. Alaric watched silently, then spoke again. "You know, Eli, I've seen many people in your position. Most sell, move on, and forget, but you carry a depth that's human, and it's more valuable than you realize." Eli swallowed. "I thank you, sir, that means a lot." Alaric smiled faintly, his tone almost teasing. "Don't misunderstand, I'm not sentimental. I just recognize talent and courage when I see it, and sometimes humans surprise me in ways I don't expect." There was a pause, a quiet moment in the bustling auction hall. Eli realized something. In a world dominated by logic, efficiency, and machines, humans still had an edge. Subtle, unpredictable emotional intelligence, empathy, creativity, even heartbreak could teach strength. "You handled that very well," Alaric said finally. "Even under pressure, even with personal stakes. That's the kind of judgment I respect." Eli felt a small surge of pride. It wasn't the ring, the money, or even Alaric's recognition. It was knowing that being human, with all its flaws and emotions, had value. He realized he wasn't just selling a ring. He was proving something to himself, and perhaps even to others, that humanity had power in ways machines could replicate. Alaric glanced at the ring one last time, then looked back at Eli. His voice was quieter now, almost confidential. "If the circumstances were different, I would have said yes." Eli froze. The words echoed in his mind. He wasn't sure if Alaric meant the ring, the proposal, or something else entirely, but the impact was undeniable. A man of intellect and authority had acknowledged a moment of human vulnerability. Before Eli could respond, Alaric straightened and returned to the crowd of clients. Eli watched him go, feeling a strange mix of confusion, awe, and inspiration. The encounter had shaken him in ways he couldn't explain. As the auction hall began to quiet, Eli collected his things and stepped out into the afternoon sunlight. The city stretched endlessly before him, filled with possibilities. The pain of rejection was still there, lingering, but it no longer felt like the end of the world. Something inside him had shifted. He walked down the street, noticing small things he had ignored before. The way the sunlight reflected off glass windows, the laughter of children in a nearby park, the aroma of freshly baked bread from a street vendor. Life was moving forward, and he would too. Eli realized that being human meant carrying contradictions, hope and disappointment, courage and fear, love and loss. And yet, in these contradictions, there was strength. In this moment, he understood that his value wasn't defined by acceptance or rejection, but by his ability to continue, to act, and to feel deeply in a world where most things were measured only by efficiency. By the time he reached his apartment, Eli felt a quiet determination growing inside him. He would continue his work, not just as a competent employee, but as a human capable of insight, empathy, and innovation. He would let his emotions guide him, not paralyze him. And he would remain open to the unexpected surprises life could offer, including, perhaps, opportunities from Alaric that went far beyond a ring. Sitting at his kitchen table, sipping a warm cup of coffee, Eli smiled faintly. The ring was gone. The heartbreak was still there. But for the first time in days, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. And in a city of machines and calculated efficiency, that hope was uniquely human and uniquely powerful. The next morning, Eli arrived at the office feeling unusually alert. The memory of yesterday's encounter at the auction house lingered in his mind. Alaric's words, so quiet and unexpected, replayed over and over. If the circumstances were different, I would have said yes. He tried to focus on work, but even the usual hum of monitors, the faint tapping of keyboards, and the low buzz of the office couldn't drown out the thought of what Alaric might have meant. Was it about the ring? About the proposal he had once imagined for Mara? Or something deeper, something about him, Eli, as a person? Shaking his head, he opened his laptop and began reviewing the latest project reports. But it was no use. His mind kept drifting back to Alaric's gaze, the subtle way he had studied him at the auction, the almost imperceptible smile when Eli had explained his reasons for selling the ring. There was something about the CEO that defied the cold, logical exterior everyone else seemed to see. Around mid-morning, a message popped up on Eli's company communicator. It was from Alaric. "Eli, come to my office. 11:00. Bring nothing but your ideas." Eli's heart skipped a beat. A private meeting with Alaric was unusual. He took a deep breath and tried to calm himself. Ideas? What did Alaric want from him? Surely it wasn't about the ring. When the clock struck 11:00, Eli knocked on Alaric's office door. "Come in," came the voice, calm, commanding, yet not unkind. The office was sleek and minimalist. A large window looked out over the city, and sunlight streamed in, making the glass walls glow. Alaric sat behind a polished desk, his hands folded in front of him. He gestured for Eli to take a seat. "Eli," Alaric began, leaning back slightly, "I want to talk to you about more than work. I want to talk to you about how humans think, how humans decide, and why I trust you in ways I rarely trust anyone." Eli blinked. This wasn't a typical meeting. I'm listening, sir," he said cautiously. Alaric's eyes met his, intense and focused. "Yesterday at the auction you did something most humans or machines would not do. You sold the ring, yes, but you did it with integrity. You didn't just want to get rid of it. You acknowledged its meaning, respected its value, and acted thoughtfully. That is human. That is rare. Eli felt a blush rise to his cheeks. Thank you, sir. I didn't think it was that important. Alaric shook his head. Humans underestimate their own worth. Machines can calculate efficiency, probabilities, even emotional trends, but they cannot understand subtlety, context, or true empathy. They cannot weigh morality against convenience or compassion against logic. You did. Eli swallowed. He had never thought of himself as remarkable. He had simply reacted honestly and openly. Yet hearing it from Alaric, it felt like recognition, validation, and a challenge all at once. Alaric leaned forward, lowering his voice. I want to see how far you can take this uniquely human advantage. Not just here in the office, but out there, in a world increasingly dominated by AI and automation. Humans still have skills that machines cannot replicate. And I think you are one of the few who truly understands this. Eli's mind raced. Could this be an opportunity? A chance to do something bigger, something meaningful? I'll try my best, sir, he said finally. Alaric nodded, satisfied. Good, but this isn't about trying. It's about observing, analyzing, and acting. Notice patterns that machines miss. Understand situations that require judgment, creativity, and compassion. Use what you feel, what you know, and what you intuit. That is your strength. That is why you are valuable. For the first time, Eli felt a sense of clarity. He wasn't just an employee. He was human with all the nuances, unpredictability, and depth that came with it. And in a world leaning heavily on machines, that was power. Alaric's tone softened, almost personal now. I want you to start by observing the team. Watch how they interact with the new AI assistants. Notice the gaps, the moments when human insight is needed. Come back to me with solutions that only a human could create. No algorithms, no shortcuts, just your judgment. Eli nodded. Yes, sir, I understand. As he left the office, his mind buzzed with possibilities. He had spent years following instructions, meeting deadlines, and performing tasks efficiently. But now he had permission, no encouragement, to use something far more important, his human intuition. Back at his desk, Eli watched the team interact with the AI assistants. Most of the employees relied on machines to manage schedules, analyze reports, and even make decisions on resource allocation. The AI was efficient, flawless, and tireless. But Eli noticed small things. Subtle hesitation when a human employee needed empathy, a misunderstanding when a situation required judgment rather than data, and moments when the AI's calculations lacked creativity. He began to take notes, documenting every instance where human insight outperformed AI logic. It wasn't about criticizing the machines. It was about understanding the unique value humans brought to the table. And as he watched, a small sense of pride grew inside him. Later that day, he approached a colleague, Lena, a sharp and intuitive engineer. Hey, he said, I've noticed something about the AI scheduling system. Sometimes it misses context that humans can easily see. Have you noticed that? Lena looked at him, surprised. Yes, actually. It schedules back-to-back meetings without considering mental fatigue or team dynamics. I've been meaning to flag it, but I wasn't sure if it was worth the trouble. Eli smiled faintly. That's exactly what I mean. Machines are fast and accurate, but humans understand nuance. We can fix gaps they miss. Together, they brainstormed solutions, designing small adjustments that allowed the AI to integrate human judgment into its calculations. It wasn't about replacing the machines. It was about enhancing them with uniquely human insight. As the day ended, Eli reflected on the events. He had started the morning thinking about a rejected proposal and a ring that symbolized loss. By evening, he realized he had discovered something far more powerful, his own worth. Not just as an employee, but as a human capable of judgment, empathy, and creativity, qualities no machine could replicate. When he returned home that night, he felt lighter than he had in weeks. He thought about Mara, the rejection, and the ring. And he realized that losing one opportunity had opened the door to something even greater, the recognition of his own human strength. He poured a cup of coffee and sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Machines worked tirelessly in every building, managing systems, analyzing data, and optimizing efficiency. But humans could dream, hope, adapt, and feel. And in that there was power. A soft chime on his communicator caught his attention. It was a message from Alaric. Good work today, Eli. Keep observing, keep learning. Humans still have a role if they use it wisely. Eli smiled, feeling a surge of motivation. He had begun to understand what Alaric meant. Being human wasn't a weakness in a world of machines, it was a strength. A subtle, irreplaceable, and profoundly valuable strength. That night, he sat at his desk and drafted a small report highlighting moments where human insight had made a difference. He included observations, ideas, and suggestions for integrating human judgment with AI systems. He didn't know what Alaric would do with it, but he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't felt before. And as he finished, he realized something important. Heartbreak, rejection, and failure weren't the end of the story. They were lessons. They were reminders that humans could adapt, learn, and rise above circumstances. Eli's phone buzzed again. This time it was a simple note from Lena. "You were right. Humans still matter. Let's make it count." Eli leaned back in his chair, staring out at the city. The future was uncertain, filled with machines, algorithms, and challenges. But he felt ready, not because he had a ring or a proposal or even Alaric's acknowledgement, but because he understood something fundamental. Being human meant having the power to change, adapt, and make a difference. And for the first time in a long time, Eli felt truly capable of doing just that. The week passed quickly, but Eli felt a subtle change in himself. His days were no longer just about meeting deadlines and following instructions. They were about observing, learning, and applying human judgment where it mattered most. Alaric's words echoed in his mind every day. Humans still have a role if they use it wisely. Eli's small report, filled with observations about the team and AI interactions, had not gone unnoticed. By midweek, he was called into a meeting, not by his manager but by Alaric himself. The CEO's office felt different this time. The sun was lower in the sky, casting a golden glow over the city below. Alaric sat at his desk, reviewing Eli's report. "Impressive," he said, looking up. "You've noticed things most people would ignore. You understand human strengths and how to integrate them into technology." "That's rare." Eli felt a surge of pride mixed with disbelief. "Thank you, sir. I just tried to pay attention." Alaric leaned back, studying him carefully. "Attention is a skill, Eli, so is understanding. Machines can process millions of data points in seconds, but they can't interpret context like humans. They can't weigh emotion against logic or nuance against probability. You've begun to see that." Eli nodded, realizing the truth of it. In a world increasingly dominated by AI, most humans had stopped noticing the subtle ways their own judgment could matter. But he hadn't stopped. He had observed. He had noticed. Alaric continued, his voice calm but deliberate. "I want you to take this further. Observe not only the AI interactions but also how humans work with each other. Look for opportunities where human insight can create value, solutions machines cannot provide alone. Then present them to me. I want your ideas." Eli's mind raced. It was more than a project. It was a challenge, a chance to prove that humans were not obsolete. "Yes, sir, I understand," Eli said firmly. The following days were filled with careful observation. Eli watched how team members communicated, how they responded to unexpected problems, and how subtle gestures, tone, and empathy could influence outcomes. He documented every instance where human judgment had made a difference, noting how machines, despite their efficiency, could not replicate these moments. One afternoon, Eli noticed a small but critical issue. The AI assistants were scheduling overlapping tasks for two departments, unaware that certain projects required collaboration between team members from both groups. A minor error to a machine, but potentially disastrous in practice. Eli approached Lena, who had become his unofficial partner in these observations. "We need to adjust the system," he said. "Machines are missing context that humans can see instantly." Lena nodded. "I've noticed that too, but how do we explain it to management?" "Most people just trust the AI blindly." Eli smiled faintly. "We show them results. Numbers are persuasive, but insight is stronger. Let's make a small test. Adjust the schedules manually for one project and compare the outcomes to the AI's version." They worked together, carefully monitoring the results. Within hours, the team noticed smoother workflow, fewer misunderstandings, and improved collaboration. The AI, while efficient, could not account for the human nuances that Eli had introduced. Later, Eli documented the changes and presented them to Alaric. The CEO listened intently, asking thoughtful questions. "This is excellent," he said finally. "You've demonstrated something important. Human judgment is not a limitation. It's an advantage." In a world obsessed with efficiency, humans who understand nuance are invaluable. Eli felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything he had experienced before. It wasn't about recognition or promotion. It was about understanding the true power of being human, the ability to observe, adapt, and apply insight where machines cannot. That evening, as he walked home, Eli reflected on the past weeks. From Mara's rejection to the ring sale to this revelation, each experience had shaped him. What once felt like failure or loss had become a series of lessons. Heartbreak had taught him resilience. Selling the ring had shown him detachment and practicality. And now, his work with the AI systems proved that human insight still mattered, even in a world dominated by technology. He paused outside a small cafe, watching children play in the park across the street. Their laughter was carefree, their gestures spontaneous and unpredictable. A group of AI-driven delivery drones zipped by efficiently, calculating optimal routes with perfect precision. Both humans and machines coexisted in the same city, yet Eli realized something profound. Humans had something machines never would. Humans could feel. Humans could empathize. Humans could anticipate and adapt in ways that algorithms could never replicate. And sometimes, humans could even inspire each other, creating solutions that were greater than the sum of logic and data. When Eli reached his apartment, he opened his laptop and began writing. Not reports, not data sheets, but reflections. He wrote about the subtle power of human insight, about resilience, empathy, and judgment. He documented his own experiences, the observations he had made, and the small victories that proved the human advantage. Hours passed, and the city outside grew quiet. Eli leaned back in his chair, reading over what he had written. It was more than work. It was a reminder of what he had learned and a guide for the future. A notification blinked on his communicator. This time, it was a personal message from Alaric. "Well done, Eli. You are beginning to understand the value humans bring to the table. Keep observing, keep learning. And remember, true insight comes from experience, empathy, and reflection." Eli smiled. Alaric's recognition was meaningful, yes, but even more important was the realization it confirmed. Being human was not a weakness, even in a high-tech world. It was a strength, a quiet, profound, and irreplaceable strength. He thought about Mara again. The rejection, once painful, now felt like a necessary turning point. If she had said yes, he might never have discovered this part of himself. Sometimes, loss was not an end, it was a beginning. Eli closed his laptop and looked out the window. The city was alive with both human and machine activity, moving in a rhythm that was part efficiency, part unpredictability. And in the midst of it, he understood his role: to observe, adapt, and act, not just as a worker, but as a human with insight that could guide and improve the world around him. As he prepared for bed, Eli felt a sense of quiet determination. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges and opportunities alike. But he was ready. He had learned to value his own strengths, to see the importance of human insight, and to recognize that sometimes the smallest observations could create the greatest impact. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that the lessons of the past, the heartbreak, the rejection, the loss, were preparing him for something greater. A challenge that required not just intelligence but humanity, not just skill but insight, not just action but understanding. Eli fell asleep with a clear thought in his mind. Being human was not about perfection. It was about perspective, empathy, and judgment. And with those qualities, he could navigate a world dominated by machines and still make a difference. Tomorrow, he thought, he would continue to observe, continue to learn, and continue to prove what humans were capable of. And in doing so, he would not just survive, he would thrive. The next morning, Eli woke with a sense of purpose unlike anything he had felt before. The lessons of the past weeks, Mara's rejection, the ring, and Alaric's recognition, had coalesced into a quiet determination. Today, he would put everything he had learned into action. Today, he would prove the strength of human insight in a world dominated by machines. At the office, Eli began by observing the workflow once again. The AI assistants managed tasks efficiently, schedules ran like clockwork, and data was analyzed in milliseconds. Yet, as he had noticed before, there were gaps. Subtle gaps that humans could see but machines could not. Misunderstandings, delays caused by miscommunication, and overlooked opportunities for collaboration, all invisible to the AI but obvious to someone paying attention. Eli approached Lena, who was already reviewing a technical report. "I think we can create a project that combines human insight with AI efficiency," he suggested. "Something that shows the board what humans can do in ways machines can't replicate." Lena's eyes lit up. "I've been thinking the same thing. We just need a clear plan and measurable results." Together, they drafted a proposal. Their idea was simple but powerful: a system that allowed human judgment to override AI decisions in critical situations, while still benefiting from machine efficiency. They identified key areas where human experience, intuition, and empathy could improve outcomes: team collaboration, client interactions, and problem-solving under uncertainty. Eli and Lena worked late into the evening, refining their plan. As they prepared the final presentation, Eli felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This wasn't just another project. This was a demonstration of the unique value of being human, a tangible proof of the lessons he had learned over the past weeks. The next morning, Eli and Lena presented their project to the board, including Alaric. The room was quiet, every executive focused on the screen as Eli explained the problem: how AI, while powerful, could not replicate human insight in certain critical areas. He highlighted specific examples from their workplace, showing the gaps that human judgment had filled. Lena demonstrated their prototype, a system where human input could guide AI decision-making, creating better outcomes than AI alone. The presentation was precise but simple, and every point was backed by observation and logic. Alaric watched silently, his expression unreadable. Eli felt a twinge of anxiety. This was more than a project pitch. It was a statement about human value. And he hoped in some small way that Alaric would recognize what he had been trying to demonstrate all along. When they finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then Alaric spoke. Impressive. His voice was calm but carried weight. "You've done something many people fail to do. You've identified a gap that machines alone cannot fill, and you've designed a solution that demonstrates human insight in a measurable, practical way." Eli felt a surge of relief and pride. "Thank you, sir," he said quietly. Alaric continued, his eyes meeting Eli's. "I want you to understand something. Humans often underestimate their own abilities. We look at machines and see perfection, efficiency, and precision. But we forget that humans bring creativity, intuition, empathy, and moral reasoning, qualities machines cannot replicate. You've shown that clearly." Eli nodded. He realized in that moment that the project wasn't just about technology. It was about proving the enduring power of humanity in a high-tech world. The board members began asking questions, curious and intrigued by the concept. Eli and Lena answered each one confidently, demonstrating not just technical knowledge, but an understanding of human behavior and problem-solving. They highlighted scenarios where human intervention made a measurable difference in productivity, collaboration, and client satisfaction. By the end of the meeting, the board was convinced. Their project was approved for implementation across multiple departments, a clear acknowledgement of the importance of human insight. Eli felt a deep satisfaction, not from recognition, but from knowing that the human advantage he had discovered was finally being valued. After the meeting, Alaric called Eli aside. "You've done well," he said quietly. "Not because of the machines, not because of the technology, but because of your ability to see what others overlook. That is power, Eli. That is the advantage humans have, even in a world dominated by AI." Eli smiled faintly. I understand now, sir. Thank you." Alaric's expression softened slightly. "Remember, the world will always try to measure humans against machines. Don't let that discourage you. Use what you have: judgment, empathy, creativity. That is your edge. That is what makes you indispensable." Eli walked back to his desk, feeling a quiet confidence. He glanced around at his colleagues, who were already integrating the new system into their workflow. The AI assistants continued their precise calculations, but now human judgment could guide them, creating harmony between technology and humanity. As the day went on, Eli reflected on how far he had come. Just weeks ago, he had been heartbroken, selling a ring that symbolized loss and rejection. That pain had felt crushing at the time, but now he saw it as a turning point. Mara's rejection, the auction, the observations, all of it had led him to discover something far greater: the power of being human. He thought about Mara, about what could have been, and he realized that her refusal, while painful, had been necessary. It had forced him to step outside his comfort zone, to see the world with new eyes, and to recognize the value he brought to it, not just as an employee, but as a human being capable of insight, compassion, and creativity. That evening, Eli returned home and sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker. He thought about the future, uncertain, filled with challenges, but also full of possibility. He understood now that humans had an advantage no machine could replicate: the ability to learn, adapt, and act with judgment informed by experience and emotion. His communicator buzzed. It was a message from Alaric. "Eli, you've proven what I suspected all along. Keep observing, keep learning, and never underestimate your own abilities. Humans still have the power to shape the world." Eli smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment he had never known. The ring was gone, Mara had moved on, but he had discovered something far more important: his own worth. And in a world obsessed with machines and efficiency, that worth was invaluable. As the city settled into night, Eli reflected on the journey that had brought him here. Heartbreak had taught him resilience. Loss had taught him detachment. Observation had taught him insight. And through it all, he had learned the most important lesson of all: humans were capable of greatness, not despite their emotions, but because of them. The next morning, Eli returned to the office with renewed energy. He saw the team collaborating, integrating human judgment with AI efficiency. The workplace was more harmonious, productive, and creative than ever before. And in the midst of it, Eli felt a quiet pride. He realized that being human was not about perfection. It was about perspective, insight, and the ability to act with empathy and understanding. That was the true strength, the human advantage. And as he looked out over the city skyline, Eli knew that he was ready. Ready to face challenges, to innovate, to inspire, and to prove that humans, with all their complexity and depth, could thrive in any world, high-tech, AI-driven, or otherwise. In that moment, he understood something profoundly simple. Sometimes, the greatest opportunities come disguised as setbacks. Mara's rejection, the sale of the ring, even moments of doubt, all of them had led him to this point. And now, he was ready to embrace the future, not as someone broken by loss, but as someone empowered by the very traits that made him human. Eli leaned back in his chair, taking a deep breath. The world outside continued to move, machines humming, lights flickering, people walking, living, and dreaming. And in the midst of it all, Eli felt a quiet certainty. The human advantage was alive, and he was ready to carry it forward. For the first time in weeks, maybe even years, Eli smiled genuinely. The journey had been long, painful, and uncertain, but it had brought him here, stronger, wiser, and fully aware of the power within him. The future was bright. The possibilities were endless. And Eli, a human among machines, was ready to shape it.